Well, hello everybody, and welcome back. I got a question for you guys. Do the names Chandler, Joey, Ross, maybe Rachel, Monica, Phoebe, did those names sound familiar to you guys at all? See, back in my day, there was a show called Friends. Well, in Friends, there's a group of people, all those people I just listed, who hang out in an apartment, they go to a coffee shop, and they just do goofy things together. Now, the best thing about Friends is not the scripts, it's not the dialogue, but it's about the relationships that people have with each other. Ross and Rachel in this particular episode are going on vacation together, and they run into a sticky situation. Well, Ross, if you know him, he's a little bit dramatic, and he's so focused on a problem that he runs into, well, I don't want to ruin it. Just watch the clip.
Actually, there's something that I really need to talk to you about.
Okay, shoot.
Okay. All right, here's the deal.
Oh, no!
What is it?
Oh, major shampoo explosion!
Look, Ross, this really isn't easy.
Oh, it's all over everything! Why? Why me?
Because you took 300 bottles of shampoo?
I'm sorry, you were saying?
Well, yeah. Okay, look, it's about me and...
Oh, not another one! Oh my God, oh, and this is moisturizer. It's even harder to clean!
So, I told you, Ross is a little bit dramatic. He has a problem, and he blows it way out of proportion. In fact, Rachel's problem is a lot bigger than his, but he's so focused on his own issue that it seems like it's the biggest thing in the world. Now, if he would just listen to Rachel, then his problem could have just been fixed. But he's so caught up in what he's doing and what he's thinking about, that's the only thing he can focus on. Do you guys ever relate to this? I know sometimes when things start to build up in my life, when things start to get in the way of my goals, of what I'm thinking about, I can blow things out of proportion too. Now, we can all be like Ross, but we can also learn things from Ross. There's a similar story in the Bible that I like to share with you guys. So go ahead and turn to Mark chapter 5, and we'll begin reading. We begin our story with a father who's in desperate need of help. His daughter is sick and on her deathbed. He hears that Jesus, a man who can truly heal anything, is in the area, so he goes and seeks him. He begs for Jesus' help, and Jesus agrees. I'm going to go to this girl and I'm going to heal her. So Jesus knows how serious this situation is. He stops all that he's doing and he goes directly to the girl. Let's read in verse 24 and see what happens. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. Because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from all her suffering. So what we know about this woman is that she's sick. She has some kind of wound on her that causes her to bleed. In Jewish culture, this is a bad thing. See, if you have an open wound or you're bleeding, you could get other people sick. And by law, you had to separate yourself, kind of like quarantine. So it would be very bizarre for this woman to go out in a crowd. She had separated herself from other people for, it said, 12 years. She's seen many doctors, but all they do is make it worse. She just cannot get healed. And she hears about Jesus, and she knows that if she just gets close enough to him, just in his proximity, that she has a chance of being healed. So she turns to Jesus. She puts her full faith in him. She reaches out her hand and just manages, just barely, to touch his cloak. And she's healed. Now, you might think this is the end of the story, but Jesus does something unexpected. Remember, he's on his way to heal a dying girl, but he doesn't let this situation with this woman escape his attention. Let's pick back up in verse 30. At once, Jesus realized that the power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," the disciples answered, "and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" Now, somehow, Jesus felt the power flow out of him. As soon as the woman touched him, he realized that something was different, and he asked his disciples, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are like, "Are you crazy? There's like 1,000 people around you. Why are you just now saying someone's touching you? Why did this stand out to Jesus? Verse 32 says, "But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering.'" Remember, the woman is culturally unclean. She's not supposed to be in this crowd. So when she's called out by Jesus, she fears for her safety. But instead of condemning the woman, Jesus praises her for her faith. And so to answer our question, why did the woman stand out to Jesus? Well, he says it's her faith. Jesus just proved to thousands of people that he is the ultimate healer. But remember, he's on a mission, and he's supposed to go heal this girl who's dying. And on his way there comes an even greater test of faith. How will the people handle it? Verse 35, "While Jesus was still speaking, some of the people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. 'Your daughter is dead,' they said. 'Why bother the teacher anymore?' Overhearing what they said, Jesus told them, 'Don't be afraid, just believe.'" The people approach the dad with the sick girl, and they tell them that she's dead. There's no going back, and you shouldn't bother Jesus with this anymore. But overhearing this, Jesus tells them to simply believe. Jesus is asking them to be confident in their faith. In fact, faith simply means confidence in God, no matter what the situation is, even if it seems impossible. Now, what Jesus says to simply believe sounds crazy, but it's about to get crazier. Verse 37, "He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion, with people crying and wailing aloud. He went in and said to them, 'Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep.' But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and the mother and the disciples who were with him, and went into where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, 'Little girl, I say to you, get up.' Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. At this, they were completely astonished." Okay, I gotta get something straight here. The people who were watching over the girl were not crazy. The girl was dead. Yet, Jesus just says that she's asleep. What's going on here? Remember that test of faith? Well, it comes into play here. Jesus is more powerful than even death. And their faith, it just hasn't caught up yet. To Jesus, waking someone up from death is just as easy as it would be for us to wake someone up from a nap. Jesus proves the power of faith here. He says all you gotta do is simply believe. So, what lessons can we learn from this story? Well, number one is this. None of us should be too interruptible for anybody. We tend to think that our time is more important than others. Now, some things do get in the way, but Jesus asks us that no matter what, we're able to interrupt our time to help somebody else, which he does with the sick woman. Jesus simply asks that we are never too busy for anybody. Our problems might seem big to us, but somebody somewhere needs our help, and that's going to require us to put our stuff behind. And number two is this. When we have faith, it should be bold. We have a God who can overcome anything. We have a God who can overcome death. So when we have faith, we shouldn't be shy to ask God to do something, because he has the power to do so. And number three is this. Faith can take you far. Jesus says all we have to do is believe. And there's no better way to demonstrate faith and what it can do for you than by someone's testimony and their true story. So, welcome my mom, Kathy, and her testimony on the power of faith.
In 1988, I married my college sweetheart, Stephen, and 3 years later, we decided to start our family. Well, things didn't work out the way that we had planned, and we tried to conceive a child, but it just didn't work out. So as time went on, we decided to think of something different to do. I took infertility drugs for about a year. I had several surgeries, a lot of problems inside with my tubes, and it was a big mess. By that time, we had gotten pregnant several times. However, they all ended in not working out. We were very sad, we were discouraged, and we were empty inside. We prayed with friends, and family. And God kept telling us that He would give us the desires of our hearts. There was a time where we had friends come and pray with us and all this, and we decided that maybe we should adopt a baby. We filled out all the paperwork. Then it was time to wait for the mother to choose us as adoptive parents. In the meantime, I went to a conference with my mother, and the preacher opened up the floor for praying. And we began to just pray about random things that were going on in our lives. And I had my hand on my stomach because I was praying and crying out to the Lord and asking Him, would He please hear my prayer? I didn't know at the time, but I would get pregnant. And then as time went on, I had 3 children, 3 miracles. I got a triple blessing. Faith is important to me because the whole time I went through all these things, I kept believing in what God's Word said and that He would give me a child. And I think it's very important to have faith in the Lord, knowing that He's a good God. He cares about you. He wants to answer your prayers in His way, in His time. God healed the sick woman. God healed the dying girl. God healed me, and He'll do it for you if you'll just trust Him, if you'll just have faith, if you'll just keep going. He'll do it for you too.
Thank you guys for joining us today. I hope this story moved you. I hope it taught you some things about faith. Guys, I'm here today because my mom had faith. What can faith do for you? It can do a lot, because Jesus says to simply believe. We'll see you next time.